Good morning to you all. I am very happy to give a talk on this very important day, World Environment Day 2021 on 5th June to the students of Tamil Nadu Jayalalitha Fisheries University, Basic Sciences Campus, Chennai. I am thankful to the organizer and the Dean, Dr. S.E. Sanmuham, for inviting me to give a talk on this aspect to the students on this very important World Day. The World Environment Day is celebrated more than 100 countries on June 5th in order to inculcate the importance of our environment on our life. This particular day, which was started way back in 1974, is regularly celebrated around the nook and corner of the world, and all age groups of people of all the continents participate in this mass awareness campaign on this particular day, so that we appreciate our environment and we get lots and lots of dividend from it. So to appreciate and recognize and to create awareness of the ever-growing younger generation, this particular day, World Environment Day 2021, is very important. So every year this particular day has a theme, and this year the theme is Ecosystem Restoration. The theme of World Environment Day 2021 is Ecosystem Restoration. In order to achieve this theme, we need to reimagine, recreate and restore our lost and degraded environment. And this is our moment of action, where we cannot turn back time, but we can grow trees, green our cities, rewild our gardens, change our diets and clean up rivers and coast. We are the generation that can make peace with nature. So let's get active, not anxious. Let's be bold, not timid. This is the mindset and attitude which we require in order to progress and march forward towards the theme of World Environment Day, the ecosystem restoration. Today is an important day, and this particular year 2021 starts another decade on ecosystem activity that is called ecosystem restoration. Today UN on this June 5th 2021 is going to launch the decade on ecosystem restoration, which is a global rallying cry to heal our planet. So this decade on ecosystem restoration is aiming to prevent, halt and reverse the degradation of ecosystems worldwide, so that we get maximum ecosystem services and their benefits, which is very much essential for all the living beings of this planet Earth, the only planet where so far we know living fauna and flora is found. As we all know, ecosystems support all life on Earth. The healthier our ecosystems are, the healthier the planet and its people. The UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration from 2021 to 2030 aims to prevent, halt and reverse the degradation of ecosystem on every continent and in every ocean. It can help to end poverty, combat climate change and prevent a mass extinction. It will only succeed if everyone plays a part. How to recognize an ecosystem? What exactly is an ecosystem and how we can restore it? An ecosystem is a place where the plants and animals are living together where they can find all their energy requirements and food and shelter, everything, every requirement of their life can be found in that locality. Then only it can be called an ecosystem, which is a self-sufficient place where all the inhabitants can get whatever they want for their living. So such is the place. So mangrove ecosystem, seagrass ecosystem, and coral reef ecosystem, rainforest ecosystem, all these supports all its life forms, so that an ecosystem is a place where all the animals and plants live together and forms the web of life. So an ecosystem can be very large or even very small, but they provide planet-wide benefits like climate protection and biodiversity conservation. But what happened over a period of time since the Industrial Revolution, a lot of human development has had a bearing on the natural environment, which has increasingly damaged its balance in many places around the globe. So the ecosystems has gone to the breaking point in many places. So that is how the theme of this decade has been fixed as ecosystem restoration. As per the United Nations Environment Program, 8 important ecosystems has been categorized: farmlands, forests, lakes and rivers, grasslands and savannas, mountains, oceans and coast, wetlands, and urban areas. As we are more focused on the aquatic ecosystem, we take more on the oceans and coast. Oceans and seas, as you know, cover more than 70% of the earth, and these ecosystems regulate our climate and generate most of the oxygen we breathe in. In the pandemic era, now we understand how important the oxygen for the treatment of COVID patients, and now everybody must be aware how easily we have been using the oxygen available in the atmosphere without having to worry about oxygen. Now we come to know how difficult to supply and distribute medical grade oxygen to different parts of the country. So such a big task has been carried out by the plants and trees and the phytoplankton in the seas and ocean for us. They have been maintaining the balance of oxygen in the atmosphere for thousands of years, and which we have been using, the human kind has been using for centuries, without which our survival is unimaginable, unthinkable. So such a service which we are getting from this ecosystem, so then we must understand how important to maintain its balance. Now what happened? The tourism and fisheries are the two important key economic sectors of these oceans and seas, and they harbor biodiversity from whales to plankton, and the sunlit coral reefs to polar oceans. All these are very important for the economic activity, and we must ensure that this ecosystem is in its balance. It doesn't go out of its balance. So that is how, wherever it has gone out of its balance, we have to restore it back to its original position. That is the theme of this decade and the activity which we have to take it up during this decade. We will now look into more on the coastal environment. Tamil Nadu has a long coastal line, more than 1000 kilometers, and we have very important ecosystem along our coast: the seagrass ecosystem, coral reef ecosystem, mangrove ecosystem, wetland ecosystem, lagoon and estuarine ecosystem. We are very fortunate to have all these ecosystems in our state along the coast of Tamil Nadu, starting from Phuket to Kanyakumari. And these important ecosystems play a pivotal role in maintaining the balance of the nature along this coast. If we look at the mangroves, mangroves are found in 123 countries worldwide with an estimated area of 15.2 million hectares. The seagrasses, which occur in 159 countries covering over 30 million hectares, whereas the coral reefs area in India is about 5,790 kilometers square, distributed between four major regions: Lakshadweep, Gulf of Mannar, Gulf of Kutch, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. As you know, there are three important coral reef formations: fringing reef, barrier reef, and atolls. Out of these three forms, in India we have fringing reefs and atolls. The reefs found in Gulf of Mannar, Gulf of Kutch, and Andaman Nicobar Islands are fringing reef types, and what we find in Lakshadweep is called atolls. And these three important ecosystems are highly protective and form biologically rich habitats that play a major role in providing highly valuable ecosystem goods and services for human well-being. So we will discuss more on these three important ecosystems in this talk. I have outlined three important ecosystems which we are going to discuss further in this talk. How we are going to restore these important ecosystems. To understand what is restoration, we need to know what exactly restoring the ecosystems. Restoring ecosystem means protecting their biodiversity and helping them to deliver benefits for people and nature. We have to protect the biodiversity, the diverse nature of the flora and fauna available in a particular area from degradation, so that the ecosystem services, the benefits from that ecosystem, we get maximum. So for that, what we need to do? So as we know, there is a saying, actions speak more than words. So we must act, we must start something. Every individual is an important player in the restoration of ecosystem. So what small actions which you can make in the field, in your locality, is so important to restore the ecosystem of your area. And as well as you have to make better choices. What kind of choice which you can make? If I want to put it very simple, if you are going to a shop, you carry your own bags. Don't depend on the disposable polythene bags which are given on charge by the shopping malls. You carry your bags. And if you are going to buy non-veg items, chicken or mutton, whatever it is, or fish, you take your utensil to buy it. Don't expect the seller has to give the polythene bags and carry bags to you. So like this, every individuals can make a choice that will greatly improve the situation. So because as you know, during the flood time, how these disposable bags clogged the drainages and caused water drainage problem everywhere in the cities. So we have to make better choices, and we have to voice also. We have to raise our voice about the ecosystem services, and we have to raise our voice to create awareness of the ecosystem services, so that greater people understand the importance of it and restoring it, so that the benefits for people and nature is always ensured. So three important things you need to remember: actions, choices and voices. These three are very important to any kind of restoration. Actions for restoration can also mean preventing degradation or reducing its extent. We are doing any action to stop or prevent degradation or reducing its extent. If you want to reduce the intensity of the degradation, that is also can be called a kind of restoration. So we have to think about all these three aspects: actions, choices and voices, to act at individual level on restoring the ecosystem. Can we suddenly jump into any ecosystem restoration activity? What is required? The basic understanding of any ecosystem, like your local ecosystem. What are the drivers of degradation? And we must try to find answer for all this. So a better understanding of the ecosystem only can enable you to restore it to its original state. In general, what kind of restoration activities students, communities and researchers in the academic institution can plan for? So the coastal cleanup. As you are located in Chennai, you have beaches there, and clean up the beach out of debris. That is one important activity which you can take up. And restore vegetation above and below water. That is one of the important Millennium Development Goal. So life below water. So how to take care of it, and wise use of oceanic resources. So earlier there was a thinking that the oceanic resources are unlimited and unfishable, but now we have come to know that the oceanic resources are not unending, that can be depleted. So now most of the world oceanic resources are in depleted conditions, so we have to regenerate it or restore it. So rearing seagrass seedlings in laboratory and transporting them to seagrass beds is another activity which students can plan for. And growing corals in land-based or ocean-based nurseries and establishing them in a suitable habitat is also an important activity. Researchers can take it up. And growing mangroves seedlings in a greenhouse and planting them along the ocean's edge and the coast intertidal areas is another interesting activity. Students can experiment it. So these are some of the activities the students of schools and colleges can involve and create awareness. So all these activities will give enormous understanding of the ecosystem, so that people value, and the young generation, students and researchers value the ecosystem and has proper understanding of its services. I have listed out important ecosystems found along the Tamil Nadu coast: the Seagrass Ecosystem, Mangrove Ecosystem, Coral Reef Ecosystem, Lagoon Ecosystem, Wetland Ecosystem and Estuarine Ecosystem. So in the we will discuss three important ecosystems: mangrove ecosystems, seagrass ecosystem and coral reef ecosystem. We will first discuss about mangrove ecosystems. What is called mangrove? Mangroves are salt tolerant plants found along the intertidal areas where salinity fluctuation occurs, and the salt tolerant plant species grow along this area. They are called mangroves. And why should we restore it? Because we get a lot of benefit out of it. We get number of ecological function and environmental services. and it prevents erosion, and it acts as a barrier during cyclonic conditions. And number of forest products are especially the honey. Honey collection is an important activity in Sundarbans, and reduces saltwater intrusion towards the land and preventing storm surge. I would like to recollect the Gaja cyclone conditions. The Gaja cyclone, which was very much affecting the Pudukkottai, Tanjore district, Thiruvarur districts, and in Muthupettai, because of the widespread mangrove bordering along the coast, the fisher hamlets were very much protected. They were escaped from the damage. So the mangrove areas acted as a shelter belt protecting the source. So they reduce the wind action and avoids erosion as well as prevent storm surge. So just imagine if we are going to put tetrapods or large granite boulders along the shore to protect the shore, how much money we need to spend on it. But a plant species, the community called mangroves, which saves a lot of money when we plant and maintain its ecosystem. So that preventing the physical damage from this natural causes is an important activity which is very much essential for the coastal communities. More than that, the carbon sequestration potential of mangroves is between 6 to 8 milligram. It has an estimated 2 to 4 times higher than the tropical rainforest. So in the increasing atmospheric pollution, the carbon sequestration potential of mangroves play a pivotal role in preventing the further quality deterioration of the atmosphere. So in that way, the carbon sequestration activity of mangroves, that is called blue carbon, is an important thing which we need to understand. So these are all the ecosystem services which we need to understand it. So then only we will appreciate its beauty, so that we develop our own attitude towards protect it, so it becomes a mass global action. So this mangrove ecosystem found along the Tamil Nadu coast suffer due to fresh water. So just sometime a few minutes before I told they can tolerate higher salinity, but what happened to the mangroves along the Tamil Nadu coast? In all the places they are in degraded conditions. The reason for it, though the mangroves can tolerate higher salinity, they need periodic influx of fresh water, which is very much essential for their survival, without which they won't grow bigger, denser, and the luxurious growth of mangroves is absent in many places along the Pichavaram, Muthupettai, and even in the Pulicat Lake. So we have diverted the river discharge for agricultural activities, and this mangrove ecosystem, which is at the tail end of at the discharge point of the rivers. So normally before the construction of dams, the free flow of water has helped the mangroves to grow bigger and denser and made forest. But now increasing agricultural use has reduced the outflow of water from the dams and to the discharge point, has increased the salinity at a very higher level. So in summer season especially, not even a drop of freshwater discharge is happening in many of the mangrove areas. That affects the species composition. As you must know that about 13 different species of mangroves have been reported along Tamil Nadu coast, and half of it can tolerate higher salinities, more than 40, and half of them can survive only in low salinities. So these low saline varieties find very difficult to survive in this higher salinity area. I can talk about my own experience when I surveyed the Muthupettai lagoon. So towards landward side, the salinity was ranging above 40-45 ppt. When it was close to the seaside only, it was coming down because there is a mixing of seawater. But towards the landward side, the salinity was about 40-45 ppt in different places. You must understand that 5 distributaries of Kaveri discharge its water into the Muthupettai lagoon. So in spite of such distributaries, we find 40-45 ppt of salinity in such areas because of the poor flow of freshwater and negligible flow of freshwater. So freshwater influx is very much essential for the mangroves. So lack of freshwater flow into the mangroves alters its diversity, and many places because of this Avicennia only is the dominant varieties, Avicennia marina, which can tolerate higher salinities. So other forms, Burgera and other species are coming down. Their distribution is coming down because of the poor flow of fresh water. And many, even in popular media, and you can hear that water is simply discharged, wasted, and going to the sea. But as we fishery scientists can understand its importance, though the Kaveri, which originates somewhere in Coorg in Karnataka, the waters of Kaveri has an important role to play in Pichavaram and Muthupettai, the tail end of it at the discharge point. So the important ecosystem services the water, the fresh water has got in mangrove is very much essential to include in any policy planning. So no water is discharged wastefully into the sea, because even if the fresh water reaches, it creates an influx of nutrients because it brings in a lot of land-based nutrients. The coastal environment becomes very rich in life. So even if anybody says water is simply discharged and wasted, that is not the case scientifically. So mangroves need fresh water, though they can survive in high saline areas. Mangrove restoration. If at all we want to do mangrove restoration in a particular area, we have to answer some of the important questions. What caused the loss and degradation of mangroves? What is preventing natural regeneration of mangroves? Why should we plant mangroves in the degraded area? And who has the ownership of that area? And who should be involved? And these are some of the important questions, and answers of this is very much essential for the successful restoration activity in the field. In Tamil Nadu, many agencies have been doing in the past mangrove restoration activity. The fishbone canal structure of restoration is most popular and among these agencies, especially MS Swaminathan Research Foundation and many other NGOs were involved in this kind of activity. And mangrove restoration they have carried out in many places in Pulicat Lake, Pichavaram Mangrove, Muthupete and Ramanathapuram Park Bay areas. Now I will discuss about the seagrass ecosystem. Seagrasses are marine angiosperm that grow in the coastal shallow waters of every continent and providing a wide range of ecosystem services to coastal communities. The first one is the coastal protection and nutrient cycling, storage of sedimentary carbon similar to mangrove. The blue carbon potential of seagrass area is so huge, and seagrass ecosystem offer better environment and nursery grounds for many species in the coastal ecosystem. As far as restoration of seagrass is concerned, there are three methods are widely used: seed methods, seagrass without sediment method, seagrass with sediment. These are the three major methods practiced throughout the world. Seed-based restoration method is one of the important method of seagrass restoration. As you know, the seagrasses are flowering plants, can have seeds, and here the activity of seed-based restoration is shown in photographs. And for large scale seagrass restoration, seed-based restoration method is ideal than other two methods. In the second method, seagrass restoration is carried out without sediment. You can use any biodegradable jute bag to tie the seagrass in it, and that can be spread in the intertidal areas, or you can use U-shaped metal staples or hooks to anchor the seagrasses at the intertidal area, or else you can use wire frames wherein which you can tie the seagrasses. So these are some of the method of seagrass restoration without sediments. The third method of seagrass restoration is with sediment, the seagrass with sediment method, where you take the seagrass with its sediments, with its bottom soil like a core, and plant it. This is one of the easiest method of seagrass restoration, where you can, as it is from its root and soil, can be taken away and transplanted in the area of focus. Having discussed the two important restoration methods of seagrass and mangroves, we come to the third important ecosystem, coral reef. So as you know, coral reef ecosystem is very important and it provides a number of services, and 25% of all marine life depends on it, and we have a number of services which are shown. And the global threats for the coral reef environment is climate change, coral bleaching, and coral disease, and ocean acidification. These four are major global threats. If we look at the direct local threats, overfishing, destructive fishing practices, cyanide fishing and bottom trawling, and land-based pollution, sedimentation, and coral mining, marine debris, and plastics in the coral reef environment, So we can add number of things which affects the coral reef ecosystem. So all these restoration activities, whether it is coral or mangrove or seagrass, the United Nations has played a major role in the environmental program, and they have developed a number of toolkits and guides for restoration, and even they have developed guidelines for coral reef restoration, mangrove restoration and seagrass restoration. So I have listed some of the important books on coral reef restoration for the use of students. If we want to look at the coral reef restoration or recovery activity in India, many places this has been done, including the Gulf of Mannar on a small area in an experimental manner, but in a big way in Gujarat, in Mithapur area, with the funding support of Tata Chemicals. Translocation and transplantation of corals are going on. The corals from Lakshadweep were translocated to the Gulf of Kutch, and they have reared there, and that activity is continuing, and that is an important national level activity which is happening in Gulf of Kutch, which is a high saline gulf with poor freshwater discharge. And there they are maintaining nursery, and from nursery they will be taken to transplant in different sites. And another important method of coral reef restoration is called a biorock, in which by passing a small amount of electric current through electrodes in the water, the calcium ion deposition in the form of carbonate is created. So this will help the coral larvae to attach on the substrate and grow quickly. So this is called biorock. So the Zoological Survey of India is adapting this method of biorock and doing experimental activity in Gulf of Kutch on coral reef restoration. If you look at the global scenario of coral species restoration, I have listed out the top 10 coral species, and the branching coral Poeciliphora damicarnis is occupying the first place, the Acropora in the second place. Mostly the branching type, which is a fast growing coral variety, which is dominating in all kinds of restoration projects. So in India also, in many places only these branching corals are tried, but whereas in Gulf of Kutch the branching coral propagation did not get enough results, so they have switched over to massive boulder forms of corals there. So I have shown in this slide some of the coral fragging techniques and the images of coral nurseries, and A, B, C are the important fragging technique which even I have used here for experimental studies. And other methods are there, simple methods are used, but since corals are protected animals, we need to get the permission of the forest department. They are the guardian of the Wildlife Protection Act. Since this comes under the Wildlife Protection Act, we require the permission of the forest department to carry out any kind of research or developmental activity in the field. So their permission is required, and the coral fragging technique is one technique. And now Another technique has also come into play, that is called micropropagation, where each polyps is taken away and they are grown in the nurseries. So the advantages of micropropagation is that the growth rate is higher. What can happen in nature can happen in micropropagation at a faster rate. For example, a coral may grow 60 to 70 years in the wild to reach its full maturity, whereas in micropropagation method in 3 to 4 years this can happen. So such advantage is there. In many countries in the world, they are adapting this micropropagation technique, and in many countries coral reefs are aquacultured. And in India we have to explore this, and so far this is an untouched area, and a lot of potential is there. Since we have to make a policy platform for this coral aquaculture, then it is possible for to explore more on this coral propagation in the wild as well as in aquaculture or mariculture of coral. I thank all the participants and the organizer for this opportunity and having listened to this talk, and I hope this would have benefited you on this important day, the World Environment Day 2021, and with which you will start to appreciate the ecosystem services, and you will try to start some of the restoration activity at individual level as well as in your locality. I thank once again for the opportunity provided to me, and thank you very much.